At the beginning of the movie, a Black Ops team arrives at an abandoned building for a training exercise, to suppress and detain a legendary soldier nicknamed Ghost. Their superior warns them not to engage alone, as Ghost is not one to be underestimated. Unbeknownst to them, their training exercise has been infiltrated by another assassin who easily eliminates Ghost and begins to take out the soldiers one by one, using the shadows and his speed to overwhelm the men. The commander hears all his men being taken out and alerts everyone to be on lookout. Despite the heads up, the Black Ops team don't stand a chance against this assassin, who seems to move with superhuman speed. With all his team dead, the commander himself comes to check things out, but he too gets sent to meet his maker. A few years later, we meet Toshiro Kuroda, who runs a small convenience store and takes care of his niece Sachi, who is the only family he has left. Though it has been many years since Toshiro has fought, he still suffers from PTSD where he has visions. He goes to visit his doctor one day, telling her about his growing visions, and his doctor suggests increasing his dosage. He tells her in detail about the visions he has been having. He sees himself in a forest fighting multiple targets and taking them all out. When he wakes from the dream, he can still smell the blood and feel his heightened killer instinct. The doctor thinks it must be bad having these types of dreams, but Toshiro, however, thinks it feels nostalgic. He is not afraid, as killing is only natural in order to complete his mission. Later that day, Toshiro takes Sachi to the beach, watching her play and giving her piggyback rides along the shore. The next day, Toshiro is at his store when two hoodlums come in, and one suddenly pulls a knife on Toshiro and demands cash. Without a word, Toshiro hands over the cash before replacing it with money from his own wallet. Toshiro's friend Kenji, a former soldier now blinded and wheelchair-bound, is released from the hospital, and Toshiro and Sachi spend the day with him, enjoying the conversation and catching up on old times. After the day, they drop Kenji back at the hospital, but as they leave, Kenji senses that something is terribly wrong. Kuroda also senses this and tells Sachi to walk home by herself, and he will meet her there. Kuroda heads into the town square and immediately senses the deadly assassins around him. Kuroda swiftly takes out a female assassin before spotting a man in a suit eyeing him dangerously. Kuroda walks down on the man calmly, dodging bullets with superhuman reflexes. He grabs a pen from someone nearby, uses the crowd as cover before killing the assassin with the pen. Nearby, a hooded man keeps a close watch on what is happening. Sachi is waiting for Kuroda outside their home in the rain when a man appears beside her, resting a hand on her head. Sachi is then flooded with memories of facing this same man when she was younger. The man leaves, and Kuroda soon arrives. Meanwhile, we see an assassin, Newt, take out two thugs in an elevator for trying to make moves on her. She turns out to be an assassin working as a team of 4 under the command of a man nicknamed Phantom. They have been hunting Toshiro, aka Ghost, and have his location, but Phantom wants to savor the hunt. The assassin who wiped out the Black Ops training team is nicknamed Abyss Walker, a very cruel and sadistic assassin who turns out to be the former partner of Kuroda, and Phantom plans to use this to his advantage. Kuroda goes back to see his doctor, talking about surviving a life or death situation. He knows most people would freak out at such an experience, but a few like him need this experience to feel alive. The doctor asks if he feels guilty about taking lives, but Kuroda thinks of it as cutting of puppet strings and watching them fall, no emotion involved. She wonders if he fears death, but Kuroda cannot fear something he has never experienced. She plays around, pretending to put a gun to Kuroda's head, but before she can pull the trigger, he disappears and reappears beside her. Kuroda and Sachi are inside their usual hangout spot with their bartender friend Tsuno. The television goes out, but when he realizes he also has no signal, Kuroda becomes concerned. Kuroda leaves Sachi inside the bar with Tsuno and decides to take a walk. Outside there are two seemingly normal business people, but Kuroda is prepared, wasting no moves and swiftly killing the assassins attacking him. He gets to his convenience store and grabs some items, sensing that he has a fight ahead of him. Very soon, a team of assassins enters the store and goes after Kuroda, but even with the upper hand, Kuroda turns the tables, using his refined skills to drop the men. He takes out the last man with chopsticks before using the same chopsticks to have his dinner nonchalantly. A few minutes later, 2 other assassins, Max and Masaru, enter the store, but these two were sent by Kenji to assist Kuroda. Kuroda tells them to help with cleaning up the bodies. Afterwards, the two assassins report back to Kenji. They are not fond of helping Kuroda as they blame him for what happened to Kenji, but Kenji scolds them, revealing he still has his skill even when in a wheelchair. That night, Kuroda finds a small telephone booth to call Sachi. At that moment, Newt enters the telephone booth and the two begin to fight in the enclosed space, trading swift blows. Kuroda, however, is way more skilled and eventually brutally kills her with her own blade. He tells Sachi that he is unable to come home and to stay safe with Tsuno for a while. That night, Kuroda goes to visit Kenji in the hospital, revealing that he has Max and Masaru carrying his things. Max and Masaru are at their hideout discussing the history between Phantom, Kenji, and Kuroda, where both friends were under Phantom's command. Max explains that while leading the unit, Phantom got involved with a lot of international crimes, even kidnapping and brainwashing child soldiers. Kuroda had enough of this and turned against Phantom, which is why they are at odds today. At Phantom's base, he gets a communication from Abyss Walker who has tracked down Kuroda and warns Phantom not to get in his way. Phantom's right-hand assassin Casper wonders if they really need a dangerous man like that, and Phantom explains the connection that both he and Kuroda have. The two were an unstoppable force in his unit, contrasting but complementing each other like light and darkness. At the hospital, Kenji pleads with Kuroda to allow him to fight by his side, as he cannot stand being helpless and wants to die in battle. Kuroda simply tells him his behavior doesn't suit him. He returns to Max and Masaru, telling them to prepare themselves. Max offers him a gun, but Kuroda chooses a sharp tool instead. Meanwhile, Sachi comes face to face with Casper. Kuroda gets a frantic call from Tsuno about a missing Sachi, but Kuroda lies that she is with him to stop Tsuno from reporting it. Max and Masaru overhear the conversation and are worried for Sachi, but Kuroda reveals that everything is going according to plan, as now he knows the assassin's location. Meanwhile, Sachi wakes up inside an office with Casper staring at her. Casper lifts Sachi's sleeve to reveal the number 28, showing her own number 18. Phantom comes to greet her and seems very much acquainted with Sachi, as he was a part of his program. He reveals that Kuroda stole Sachi from him, and for that, he has to die. He loses his temper and coughs up blood, revealing that he has an illness. Kuroda, Max, and Masaru are able to locate the large castle where Sachi is being held, and they begin to plan their assault. After observing the location, there are about 200 men guarding the compound. Max and Masaru are worried about the numbers, but Kuroda adds that he could take them by himself. He reminds them to steel their nerves as they are the hunters. While Max and Masaru advance towards the fortress, Kuroda begins taking out the men, firing shots into the air to draw the men towards him. After drawing the men into an ambush, Kuroda begins his attack on the team, moving with fluid moves to drop his attackers. The men surround him, but he puts his back against a tree and easily takes down the men. Max and Masaru are making their advance when they come under heavy gunfire from an advancing team. The two steady themselves and with well-trained movements, they engage the incoming men and wipe them out in a hail of bullets. Kuroda is still taking out soldiers. He pulls a short shovel and uses it as a weapon. Another team of soldiers then encounter Abyss Walker, who wipes out the group of mercenaries without saying a word. Well, he did warn Phantom. Both Kuroda and Abyss Walker continue their assault on the men, shortening their numbers. Max and Masaru are making their advance when Masaru runs into Casper. She pretends to be unarmed before attacking Masaru with a machete. She is very fast and slashes him multiple times. Masaru tries to fight back with a blade, but Casper is ruthless and cuts him down. Kuroda gets fired on by a sniper, but he uses the trees as cover, moving between them to deflect bullets. He locates the sniper but is attacked by two assassins who seem very skilled. One man wields a blade while the woman carries a gun, but even with their combined strength they cannot beat Kuroda. In an instant, both assassins lay dead at his feet with some expert movements. Casper soon comes face to face with Kuroda, but he realizes that she is a child and throws his weapon away. Casper attacks, but Kuroda simply toys with her, throwing her around. Casper tries a terrorist move, but Kuroda slices her detonator before knocking her out. He meets up with Max but tells him to move on without him as he plans to wipe out the remaining soldiers in the forest. Using 2 blades, he confronts a team of men, who quickly realize that using guns will only hurt themselves. They attack with blades, but Kuroda locks in and battles his way through. The men seem endless, and Kuroda is seemingly out of breath. He puts his back against a tree and pulls out a shuriken, prepared to put his life on the line. He steps out, loosening up his body as the men draw closer to him. Kuroda works his way through the men, wasting no moves and breath in wiping them all out, finishing off the last man with a bone-crunching knee to the face. As he catches his breath, Abyss Walker appears behind him but does not attack, so Kuroda walks away. Having finished off the men in the field, the men in the fortress are placed on high alert. Inside, Phantom tells Sachi about the real reborn ghost, a man who is older than Phantom himself. The codename was then passed down directly to Kuroda due to his insane skills. Kuroda infiltrates the fortress, taking out a team on his way in. He and Max meet up, fighting their way towards Sachi. They find her hiding in a room and he tells Max to look after her. Sachi doesn't want him to leave again, as she fears that he will not return and holds on to him. Kuroda promises to see her soon and leaves, telling Sachi that he loves her. Kuroda heads out to engage the men and Abyss Walker is also there. The two end up taking out nearby soldiers who interfere with their fight. Abyss fires shots at Kuroda who dodges them all, so Abyss Walker disappears into the shadows. Kuroda goes looking for him. Abyss Walker tries to ambush him, but Kuroda is ready for him. The two unveil some expert foot and handwork to trade some even blows, none getting the upper hand. Kuroda throws his blade down, telling Abyss Walker to come and get him. Abyss Walker also throws away his blade and the two decide to trade blows. They size each other up and face off, and Abyss Walker manages to land some heavy blows on Kuroda. He grabs his blade and a flashlight and uses them to get the upper hand. Kuroda sacrifices his hand to grab the blade but breaks Abyss Walker's shoulder and ends him with a strong blow to his chest. Kuroda stumbles out coughing up blood. He calls Sachi but suddenly freezes as Phantom has come to face him. Kuroda explains that all this was a plan to draw out Phantom, but Phantom wonders how Kuroda plans to fight him with all those injuries. Kuroda doesn't care about his injuries, as his only objective is having Phantom standing before him. Phantom tries to pull Kuroda into a trance with a strange technique. He reveals a blade and advances slowly, raising the blade to Kuroda's neck. As the blade touches him, his instinct kicks in and he slices Phantom's neck in a swift move. He stumbles away clutching his neck, then collapses, apologizing to Sachi for failing her. Later, we see Max and Sachi at the beach where she buries a book that Kuroda had gifted to her. As the two walk away, a man suspected to be Kuroda watches them from a hilltop.